You and your money. You work hard for your money. It should work hard for you. My name is Megan Sather. I'm the personal financial counselor for the Vermont National Guard. A little bit about what I can do to help you. Maybe you want to create a budget. Maybe you want to sit down and figure out some financial goals. Maybe one of those goals is the best way to pay off your debt. You want to improve or maybe establish credit. Maybe you're recovering after a divorce or planning for retirement. This is just a small list of some of the things that I can sit down and we can talk about. When we talk about managing money, we have to talk about the financial planning pyramid. Any financial plan needs to have a solid base. So we start at the management level. Adequate income, meaning that you make enough money to pay your bills. Having a spending plan or budget in place, and having a wise use of credit. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Insurance is a very important part of any financial plan, and not just medical insurance, car insurance, if you rent, renter's insurance, maybe life insurance. Those are all things that go into this piece of a spending plan. You want to make sure that you have your management level in place. Once you have that established, then we can move on to the next level, which is saving. Everybody knows about an emergency fund. Experts talk about it all the time, and everybody needs to have an emergency fund. There are a lot of different ideas out there about how much money needs to be in an emergency fund. I've heard experts say that you should have 2 to 3 years of your living expenses in an emergency fund. That's a lot of cash to have in a savings account. And if at the moment $5 is all you have in your savings account, that number is astronomical. Let's instead say you start at $500. If you have $5 right now in an emergency fund and you can plan and save to have at least $500, that is an excellent start for an emergency fund. Once you get your emergency fund in place, then you can move on to a reserve savings account. A reserve savings account is used for expenses that occur and you know when they're going to happen, but they don't happen every month, so they're not in your spending plan. Let's say you like to pay your car insurance all 6 months at once when the bill comes. Every month you would save that monthly payment into your reserve account. When the bill came, you would pay it. There's a holiday that happens at the end of the year. It seems to surprise a lot of people. You could start saving money every single month. Then when it came to the holidays, you would already have that money saved up. That's a reserve savings account. Goal getter account, self-explanatory. You want to buy a new car, you want to go on vacation, you want to get a house, all of those go into your goal getter fund. Always make sure that these 3 savings accounts are separate. If not, it's amazing how emergency money becomes vacation money. Always separate them out so that you know when you've reached your goal. If the money's in 3 different pots, then you know when you've reached it. Once you've built your saving level, then you can go on to investment. Buying a house, TSP, all of those things. And we're going to talk a little bit about investments later. You want to make sure that you're building a sound financial plan. Talked about having a spending plan. The 4 basic elements to any spending plan. Income, you have to know how much money's coming into the house. Expenses, you have to know how much money you're paying out every single month on expenses. Living expenses include things like your mortgage or your rent, groceries, your cell phone payment, your utilities. All of those go into your living expenses. Then debts, car payments, credit cards, loans, and how much money you have going into your savings and investing. You have to know those four numbers to be able to create an accurate budget. Let's say you've never started with a budget. When you're creating a budget, the ideal breakdown for a budget, 70% of your expenses should be on living expenses, 20% on debt, 10% on savings. This is the ideal breakdown, and that 70% of living expenses, that's why we include your rent or your mortgage. That's a living expense. It's not considered a debt if it's a mortgage. Debts are only car payments, credit cards, loans. And then you should be saving or investing 10% of your income. That's the ideal breakdown. For a lot of people, they have more than 20% debt to income ratio. And usually what happens at that point is money comes out of that savings allotment and that goes to debt. So we want to try and make sure that this is where your budget's starting off. I would absolutely love it if nobody had any debt and all of it was going into savings and investing in your living expenses. You can get there, but it definitely takes some planning. If you've never created a budget, the thought of trying to save every single receipt for every single penny you spend in a month, I can honestly tell you, is fun for about 2 weeks. This is one of the easiest ways that I have found spending trackers. You can get them at your credit unions, your banks. A lot of credit card companies have spending trackers. And what they'll do is they'll break down where your expenses are. This is a picture of mint.com, mint.com. It's free. What it does is you link it to your checking account. And I know that sounds a little scary, but Mint has the same securities as your bank. And what it does is it goes into your checking account and then it takes everything, every single expense that you have coming out and it categorizes them for you and creates a budget. So it shows you exactly where you're spending your money if you spend your money out of your checking account. If you charge everything on your credit cards, then use the credit card statement and that will have a spending tracker on it. This is a great way to start if most of your money is being spent with a debit card. Once you have a budget and you know where that money's going, you can actually go into Mint and tell it how much you want to spend in a month. So in this example here, it says $50 for fast food on the right-hand side. This month, this says you spent $47, so there's only $3 left. You can set Mint up so that it will send you a notification. Hey, you said you only wanted to spend 50 bucks on fast food. You've only got $3 left. Then you can make the choice and go, okay, my budget was 50. I'm there. I'm done. If you've never started a budget, having a spending tracker is the easiest way to get accurate numbers. You want to make sure that the numbers are accurate so that you know exactly where every single penny you are making goes. Once you know where your money goes, then you can start coming up with financial goals. When you create a financial goal or a goal of any kind, you want it to be a SMART goal. You want it to be specific, measurable, meaning that you know when you get there, action oriented, what you need to do to achieve the goal. Is it realistic? Is it something that you can actually do? And how long is it going to take you to get there? And have you budgeted enough money to achieve that goal? That is a SMART goal. Let's look at an example. I want to be rich. That's not a great goal. First of all, it's not very specific. The definition of rich is probably completely different for everybody. How do you know if you get there? How long do you have until you need to save that much money? Instead, I want to have $1 million in assets by age 65, and I'm going to invest $250 a month to get there. Then you know when you're there, when you've achieved it, and you know because you've done your budget whether or not you have $250 a month to get there. Some goals to consider when you're creating your plan. Do you have at least the 2 months of living expenses in an emergency fund? We talked about the $500. Is there debt that you could pay off? Is there something special that you want to buy? I don't care who you are, but when you create a budget, you need to make sure that you're going to give yourself money to have fun. Things to think about. When you go on deployment, who's going to be handling the finances? Who's going to pay the bills? Maybe you want to set up automatic bill pay. Make sure that everybody that's going to be in this decision making knows what's going to happen. Create a deployment spending plan. You're probably going to be making extra money. Come up with a plan of what you would like to do with that. Do you need to change some of your allotments, your TSP elections? Do you want to choose where your special pays and your bonuses go? Maybe you haven't made that choice yet. Make sure that your money is going where you want it to. Then we get into credit. How to establish credit. Opening a savings and a checking account. First ways to establish credit. Always paying your bills on time. Taking out a credit builder loan, which is a secured loan. And what that means is you are borrowing your own money. But if you're establishing credit, some people may have to do this. They freeze the money in your savings account. You pay it back every single month of it as if it was a loan, and then you get your money back when you pay it. It's less risk for the bank or the credit union. A lot of time that's what they do for people to establish credit. And getting a local retail credit card, they're much easier to get than starting off with a Visa or a MasterCard. Now that you've established credit, let's talk about some good things and some not so good things to do with credit. Things to not use credit for. Impulse purchasing, everyday purchasing, spending for status, spending to cheer yourself up. Those are things to not use credit for. And everyday purchases, I'll tell you, I have one credit card. On it, I charge everything I would pay cash for in a month. My groceries, my cable, my cell phone, gas for the car, all of it gets charged on my credit card. At the end of the month, I pay the credit card off. Because I pay that entire bill off at the end of every month, I don't pay any interest. And the reason why I do that is I get reward points. I save all my reward points and use them at the end of the year to get gift cards. And that's how I do my holiday shopping. Everyday purchases may be on the unwise side only if you don't pay the balance off and all at once at the end of the month. If you're charging groceries and making the minimum payment on them, that's when it becomes an unwise use of credit. Good things to use credit for: large planned purchases, buying a house, buying a car, assets, education, emergencies. Those are all good things to use credit for. Credit cards. Let's say you decide to buy a $5,000 flat screen TV. You go to the big electronic stores credit and use their credit card, on average 18% interest, which is actually pretty good for an electronic store credit card. Get the bill in the mail, minimum payment is $100 a month, 2% of the balance. You make the minimum payment on that credit card, it's going to take you 39.3 years to pay it off. And on top of the $5,000, you're going to pay over $13,000 in interest. That's $18,000 for the flat screen TV. That's a car. That's a very good used car just by making the minimum payment. Instead, you decide to double the minimum payment when you get the bill in the mail. So you pay 4% of the balance. Instead of 39 years, now you're down to 11.2 and only $2,800 in interest. This works for any credit card. Any extra money that you send goes to pay off the principal faster. Doesn't have to double the minimum payment. Send them an extra $10. Every little bit helps. Your credit. You have 3 credit reports from 3 different credit reporting agencies. Because they're 3 different companies, there's going to be different information on each one. You're entitled to a free copy of each one of the 3: Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, annualcreditreport.com. You can go in, view each one of those for free every single year. And when you deploy, you can put an active duty alert on your credit report. And what that will do is lock your credit report so that nobody can apply for credit in your name. If you're not going to be using your credit for anything, why not place the active duty alert on it and lock it? And then you don't have to worry about anybody being able to use your credit while you're gone. This is why you want to make sure that everything that's on your credit report is accurate, because that's what's used to determine your credit score. And your credit score is not only being used just when you want to buy something. They're pulling your credit score when you get car insurance. Many jobs are now pulling credit scores as part of the hiring process. How much you pay for your cell phone can be determined by your credit score. You want to make sure that everything's correct on your credit report so that this number is accurate. The biggest part that goes into determining your credit score is your payment history. 35% your payment history. Amounts owed is the next biggest part of your FICO credit score. What they do is they take the balances on your credit cards and compare them to the credit limits on your credit cards. If your balances are more than 30% of your credit limits, they are going to drop your credit score. So what that means is if you have a credit card with a $1,000 credit limit, you shouldn't charge more than $300 on it. Anything above and beyond that, and they're going to start dropping your credit score. Your length of credit history is 15% of your credit score. There's no way to speed that one up. That's it, time. Types of credit used, 10%. They want to see how you use the two different types of credit that's available to you. Installment credit, which is a loan, and revolving credit, which is a credit card. New credit, anytime you sign your name to acquire debt, it's an inquiry and it stays on your credit report for 2 years, and that's 10% of your FICO score. How to improve your credit score. Maybe you saw that number and you didn't like it. Pay your bills on time. Set up automatic bill pays or some sort of payment calculator. Because like I said, that's the biggest part of your FICO score is paying your bills on time. Keeping those 30% or less of your available credit. Applying for new credit only when you absolutely have to. And making sure that you're reviewing your credit report every single year. Now that you've got your budget, you've got your credit, built your savings, you set your financial goals. Now let's talk about retirement planning. You have a lot of choices of where you can put your money for retirement. IRAs, individual retirement accounts, TSP, thrift savings plan, civilian 401k. All of these are available to you when it comes to retirement planning and where you want to put your money. You can use a little bit, you can use all of them, personal choice. Biggest thing you need to know about planning for retirement, the earlier you start, the better. Let's say you want to have $500,000 by age 65. If you are 25 and you're going to start saving every single month until you retire, all you have to put away is $20 a week, $80 a month, 40 years, you can have $500,000. We're basing these numbers on an annual 10% rate of return, which for the past 20 years is what the US stock market's done. Let's say at 25, you were getting the big truck, getting all the toys, and you wait until you are 35. Now, instead of $80 a month, you have to put $221 a month away. Let's say at 35, you were getting married, getting the white picket fence, having kids, and you wait until you're 45. Now you have to put $658 a month away, all to have the same $500,000. And the numbers that are in parentheses, that's actually how much cash you had to invest. So if you started when you were 25, you only had to put away $37,000. The difference between that and $500,000 is all interest. Money makes money. The longer it can sit, the more money it can make. So the easiest way to start investing for retirement is in the thrift savings plan. So you have 5 funds to choose from in TSP. The G fund, which is savings bonds, very low risk, relatively low rate of return. The F fund is also a bond fund, but it is more corporate and mortgage bonds, so there's a little more risk. Little higher rate of return. The C and the S fund are your true US stock market funds. The C fund is based on the S&P 500, which are the 500 largest US corporations. The S fund is your healthcare and technology stocks. And the I fund is the international stock market. That one has the highest highs and the highest lows. Those are the 5 basic funds that you can choose from in TSP. What they found out is that there's a lot of people who either don't have the time or don't understand these different funds, and they didn't know where to put their money. So what they created were the life cycle funds, and the life cycle funds are based on the year that's closest to when you want to retire. So if the year 2065 is the closest one to when you want to retire, you would put your money into the life cycle 2065. You will see in this graph, the higher the number, the higher the risk. The longer your money can sit, if there's a dip in the stock market, you have enough time to make your money back. So what happens is you put your money into a life cycle fund, and then it starts moving it down the row until you get to that day when you retire and want to start taking it out, and all your money is in the life cycle income fund, where 72% of it is in G and it's safe. They reallocate all of this for you. So the life cycle funds are really your set it and forget it option when it comes to TSP. In the 401k at my job, my money's in a life cycle fund. I set it and forget it. I let the experts manage it for me. Personal choice though, you're not locked into it. I have some clients who put 50% of their money in the life cycle fund, 50% they manage on their own, and they see who does better. Personal choice as to where you want to put your money. These are all the options that you have in TSP available to you. Some of the legal things to consider. Powers of attorney. Do you need one? And what is it going to be used for? You want to make sure that if there is somebody who's going to need a power of attorney to do something specifically for you, that you get a specific power of attorney just for that. A general power of attorney gives somebody the rights to do a lot of different things. So make sure you understand what it is you are giving somebody the power to do when you give them a power of attorney. Always make sure that your will is up to date. Do you need to update your beneficiaries? Do they need to be added to TSP, or maybe you have a civilian retirement account? Make sure they're who you want. Service Member Civil Relief Act. There are a lot of things that are available to you when it comes to the Service Member Civil Relief Act. The biggest one that a lot of people use is any debt that you acquired prior to entering the military while you are on deployment orders. You are eligible to drop that interest rate to 6%. So definitely something to think about if you have some high interest debt that you might want the interest rate lowered on. The savings deposit program is available to you if you meet the requirements. And what the savings deposit program is, it's a savings account that allows you to put up to $10,000 in the savings account. While you're in theater and eligible, you will earn a 10% annual rate of interest on that savings account. If you have questions, things I didn't cover, things you wish you knew more about, here's my contact information. I'm very quick by email, cell phone. We can definitely come up with a deployment plan if you're looking at changing your spending plan. Have questions, just let me know. That's what I'm here for.